Hello, Clutter Warrior. Today, we are going to talk about hidden treasures and traps in the garage and all of those other spaces beyond the garage as well. So whether you have a garage or not, this will still apply to you. I was recently in Michigan, in the United States, the Great Lake State. And I was visiting my mom, and we were cleaning out the garage. So some of the work that I was doing in there was to help her get the garage more organized, and in the process of helping her organize the garage, we came across a few remaining items of mine. One of them was a tub that had my high school yearbooks in it, as well as some documents pertaining to my dad, who died as of this recording 14 years ago. So he's been gone for a little while. And in there were both things from his funeral, as well as his high school GED document and his discharge papers from the Navy, the US Navy, as well as, I think, his entering the Navy document. So some old stuff that belonged to my dad. I think also, as I remember now, I also found some business cards of a few businesses that he had visited. I'm assuming, given that that was 70 or 80 years ago, that some of those businesses may still be open, but most of them weren't. And some of them were close to the naval base in wherever he was, Japan or wherever he was. So unlikely that I would be visiting any of those stores. I let those business cards go. What I want to talk about is, in finding this little treasure, there also was a trap, which is the sentimental attachment for these items, or attached to these items, related to these items. So I'm a human being, just like you are, and I'm prone to all of the things. Just because I'm the most organized man in America doesn't mean that I also don't get snagged by belongings. So I sat down on my mom's floor and I spread all of these things out, and for several hours I sifted through them to figure out what would stay, what would go, what I wanted to scan, what I would hold on to in its original form. And then I packed everything up and shipped it to myself in Florida, which is where I'm living these days. So it was a very interesting couple of hours, and I had the range of human feelings. I was amused. I don't know that I was annoyed. I was certainly sad, missing my dad and thinking about him, and it made things palpable in a way that, thinking about him in fleeting ways during the day, as I do, this was a deeper experience. And so there is something to recognize around keeping things as touchstones. And I've never suggested, when it comes to sentimental items, that we let them all go necessarily. If that resonates with you, I support you in letting them go. If having them as touchstones is resonant and meaningful, I think you should keep them. I don't think you should keep them anywhere. I think they should be put with their siblings in some sort of sentimental land container, or someplace where you can access them. I don't think they should be in the junk drawer in the kitchen, or possibly on the top shelf of a closet with random other things, perhaps extra blankets, or the turkey platter, whatever it might be. That, like with like, should be your guiding rule for figuring out where those things will live. But I have never suggested that they all must leave. By all means, you can keep things as touchstones, as totems to past experiences. Just be mindful of what you're keeping and why you're keeping it. If it's for me, those business cards that I came across that belonged to my dad are not something that would evoke much of a feeling for my dad. I mean, I wasn't alive when he was in the military. Those particular shops don't hold any, there's no tether between him visiting those stores to maybe have a suit made or something. Doesn't impact me in any way. Whereas the book that everybody signed at his funeral, more evocative. That reminds me of who attended the service, and I can remember that through sense memory. So that's more of something that I would hold on to. And there you get to see, as an example, how I would discern between things I would keep and things I would let go of. When you are doing this exercise for yourself with your sentimental objects, you'll have your own barometer. What I would suggest is pay attention to the things that prompt some sort of feeling versus things that you're ambivalent about. I would think that if there's ambivalence today, it's unlikely that something is going to spring forward to make you more attached. And anything that you can let go of because there isn't adequate attachment, that would seem like something you could let go of. So something to think about. And then if we zoom back out to the meta observation of going into these spaces that are often repositories for, let's say, historically random items, because these things that belong to me have very little to do with my mom's jumper cables or her cleaning supplies or her gardening tools. Most of the things that live in the garage have very little to do with me and my historic items. So there's as you're going through these kinds of spaces, and it could be an attic, could be a basement, it could be a garage. These are all places where these kinds of things might be hidden, might be overlooked, might be left unexamined. So as you are excavating, as you are exploring, you might find these things. And I budgeted time to spread them all out on the floor. You'll want to do the same thing as well. I wouldn't suggest when you come across them that you stop and drill down into them in that moment. I would say, recognize, aha, I found a little treasure trove. I found a potential trap. I will budget a distinct amount of time to go through these things and see, based on that deeper exploration, what will stay and what I can let go of. So we don't want to lose the momentum of the task that we were involved in, which was basically digging around in the garage or in the basement or the attic, looking to see, taking more of an assessment of what was going on. And then based on what we discover, there's future tasks that we schedule with ourselves to get done. So that's what I did. And as a result, I spent, like I said, several hours, figured out some things that could stay, figured out some things that could definitely go, and then brought them home so that I could integrate them and take next step actions. So for the family photographs that I found, those will get sent off to be scanned. My yearbooks found their way onto the bookshelf. My dad's historic papers will be scanned and then inserted into his folder. I have a digital folder with his death certificate and any other important paper, his birth certificate. I mean, a few things, even though his estate, such as it is, there was no estate, but his estate has been closed for a long time. I was his only heir. I mean, I was his only child, and he left everything to me, which basically meant that I spent, several $1,000s burying him. There was nothing waiting for me other than some debt and some sadness. That was the legacy for my father. And I say that with no judgment. I love my father very much. And I don't resent the fact that that there was debt left behind. I mean, he paid a lot of money forward for me for my entire life. As you know, I went off to a university. You know, he bought me my first car. He took care of me. So it was a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of money that he spent on me over my lifetime and our time together. So no resentment there, just an acknowledgement that there was not, like, you know, millions or even thousands of dollars waiting for me. And I say often, and not to get too far down a parallel rabbit hole, right? When somebody leaves, it's not Christmas. I mean, seldom are we focused on what we're inheriting more than we're focused on the loss and the grief that we're experiencing. So just as a sidebar. Back to the idea of traps and treasures, is just make sure that you schedule the time. And then even beyond that, now that everything's here, I need more time, because as I said, I'm going to digitize the photos. I'm going to scan my dad's documents and put those in his digital folder. I'm going to put I already put the yearbooks up on the bookshelf. So everything's been integrated or set up as a future task. Then I can put that to bed and then move past that. So as you are doing your own excavating in these places, it's important that we have the right mindset, that we don't go down the rabbit hole, that we don't get lost in, oh, I found something, I'm going to go explore it. No. Just like with like, what you were doing was figuring out what was waiting for you. Awesome. Then you will, whatever you do discover will have its own task set put around it as well. So that's where I'd like to leave it for today. Just make sure that as you are going off, that you stay focused on what you're doing, which is just discovering and exploring, and then budgeting discrete amounts of time with yourself to drill down into whatever you find at an appointment that you make with yourself, that then you keep with yourself. And future actions, future tasks will come out of that excavation. In the meantime, the space will be better organized. You'll be able to find things better in that space. And whether it's the garage, the basement, the attic, a closet, it's always an opportunity to group like with like. So as you leave any space, it should be better than you found it, with like as your guiding principle for, even if you're not finished in that space, you've arranged things with their siblings so that as you get back into the space, there will be more familiarity with what's waiting for you. That's it for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. I look forward to being with you again real soon.